5 players to watch from Ireland in their upcoming tour of New Zealand, folks. I'm going to give you guys 5 players I think you should look out for, especially if you're a Kiwi fan who probably doesn't watch the Six Nations or doesn't watch any of the kind of club rugby over in Europe, like the URC, with where the Irish teams play at. The reason I'm doing this video is because the other day the All Blacks put out a list of 5 players for Kiwi fans to watch, keeping in mind that the audience for that article was primarily Kiwis. So yeah, there was a little bit of criticism about that article for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they picked a couple of Kiwis, so you should look out for Jamison Gibson-Park and James Lowe, both guys of Kiwi origin, plying their trade over in Ireland now, and both representing the national team. So you probably have seen those guys play before if you're a New Zealand fan who doesn't watch Six Nations but you watched Super Rugby back in the day. You would have seen both these guys play. They're both playing pretty well in the Irish jersey. Johnny Sexton, in case you haven't heard of him, a former player of the year and whatnot. Yep, he's there as well. And then Caelan Doris. His mention got a little bit of criticism because it mentioned him alongside CJ Stander to look out for, who's obviously retired for pretty much a year. And Tyke Furlong, one of the world's premier props. So, in terms of being familiar to New Zealand fans, I feel like most people should have heard at least of some of these names, if not all of them. Certainly Sexton is one of the biggest names in the game. And Kiwis, as I said, will have heard of the 2 Kiwis. But what about some genuine guys that Kiwi fans may not have heard of, who you should look out for? Well, I'm going to go through 5 guys. Not necessarily all guys who will play. But if they do play, keep an eye out for them for the reasons I am about to mention. I believe they're all fit and may be available for selection, but if any of them have been injured in the last couple of weeks in the URC, do let me know as well. And of course, I'm only limiting myself to 5. It could be an extensive list, but I'm just going with 5. One of them, I'm going to say, is a chap by the name of Craig Casey. At the moment, as far as I'm aware, he's probably the 3rd choice halfback for Ireland. So he's behind Jamison Gibson-Park and he's behind Conor Murray. But he is kind of one of the future prospects. He's a lot younger than those 2 guys. He's only 23. He's a pretty diminutive guy. He's not the biggest halfbacks. You know, you see some 6-foot halfbacks these days. He's pretty small in stature, but man, he's zippy. Very zippy. He's quick. He adds pace to the attack whenever he plays, and he loves a wee snipe. So I'm assuming the All Blacks coaches will have done their homework. They're probably planning for Gibson-Park and Murray. But in case Craig Casey, who plays for Munster, gets a wee crack, do look out for him. And his snipes down the blind side and whatnot will cause havoc if they don't keep an eye on him. I mean, to put it into a little bit of context, he only played 19 minutes in the Six Nations. And most guys who play halfback tend to have more minutes than passes. Gibson-Park did have more passes than minutes because the Irish like that relentless quick ball game. But I mean, Casey played 19 minutes and he had 29 passes. That's to kind of give you an idea of the fast turnaround ball that he can supply when he's playing. He's only had 5 caps, so whether he gets a game in New Zealand, I don't know. But I'm just saying, he's 23 years old. Keep an eye out for him. He's proper dangerous when he does get on the field. Another guy I'm going to say to look out for is Dan Sheehan, who at this point is probably the 2nd choice hooker in Ireland. He didn't play in that match where Ireland beat us last year, but in the Six Nations, him and Kelleher were the guys, although I think didn't Kelleher get injured at one point. The reason I say you should look out for Sheehan is, if you're a New Zealand fan, he probably will remind you a little bit of younger Dane Coles, and he loves a run. He's got crazy running numbers for a hooker, and he's got some pretty decent wheels as well. Like, I looked up his meters per carry in the Six Nations, and he's averaging like 3.5 meters a carry. Most of the hookers, like the French hooker, was averaging 2. So, yeah, pretty good numbers for a front rower. He scores tries, he makes offloads, he does the tackling thing. Like, yeah, but basically, look out for his running game. Because, as I said, if you don't do your homework on a guy like that, the fact that he can add that little bit of turn of pace along with his core roll stuff, plus the offloads on top, he will certainly catch a few guys by surprise. And he's another guy who's still fairly young. So a lot of Kiwi fans, if you haven't watched Ireland and the Six Nations, you may not have seen him before. Another guy, I'm just going to write his initials, who you probably will have seen, even if you don't remember him, is Josh van der Flier. Now, the reason I say you may not remember, because he did play in that game against the All Blacks last year, but he kind of had one of his quieter games, I think, and that one, I think it was more about Doris, who got mentioned by the All Blacks team, and Conan kind of had big ball carrying games. And like traditionally, this guy's been like a real tackling machine and a bit of a threat at the breakdown. Like loves shooting out of the line and making the first five's life an absolute misery by getting up into their face. But last year and also this year, he's properly improved his running game. He did really well in the Six Nations with his carries, and he's gotten the knack of kind of hitting the line at pace where he needs to be, kind of at that perfect moment. You know, he's got that turn of pace and able to kind of put himself into a gap. So, like, for example, he only had 1 hour against New Zealand. I think he got like 20-odd meters. But in the Six Nations, man, he got a couple of tries. He got an assist. He was one of the top carriers. I think he was like the fourth forward for run meters. So he was loving a ball carry, but he out-tackled every forward above him. So he still does his core job as a 7. He's an open side for the most part. He does his job really well. Like he gets through his tackles and gets through his carries. So every guy who got more run meters than him didn't get as many tackles as this guy. And Ireland played a game where they had so much possession, they generally didn't have to make that many tackles. But this guy was still one of the top tacklers. So Josh van der Flier. And I will say, despite the name, which maybe sounds a wee bit South African, he's not South African. He's born in Wicklow. I know he's born in Wicklow because I often see people reminding people who don't follow Irish rugby that he's an Irish-born fellow with a Dutch surname. Just like Kiwi fans, kind of we roll our eyes when someone says how it's going to be great for Giles Piatalba playing for his native Tonga, and we say he's born in Auckland. It's the same deal with Josh van der Flier being born in Ireland. So just FYI. Another guy who I'm going to say, Josh van der Flier will get a start, I'm sure, if he's fit. Mac Hanson is another guy who may or may not play. And you may be thinking, Mac Hanson, you know that name from somewhere. He played for the Brumbies only a short time ago. But he's now in Ireland, and since he's been in Ireland, like he's been absolutely tearing it up. Within half a season of going to play club rugby over there, they unlocked his potential, and he's just been sitting there with it. Like he earned himself an international call-up. He's not played a heck of a lot of games for Ireland, and he certainly didn't play New Zealand. But yeah, he's only 24 years old, and he's just been, as I say, absolutely tearing up. The fact that you can go there for half a season and get yourself in the international team kind of speaks to how well he's doing. Like in the club competition, he's had 6 tries. He's the third Irishman for clean breaks. So first Irishman for clean breaks. The second in the comp for defenders beaten. He's just been tearing it up. So whether he gets a start ahead of some of the other guys, kind of like James Lowe or some of the more senior guys, remains to be seen. But he has been absolute lightning. He's another one who's not that big, but he's quick and he's got a pretty wicked step on him. So he's been blooded by the Irish, and we'll see if they bring him down to this neck of the woods. And the last guy I've gone with is another kind of pretty diminutive guy. He's only played once for Ireland, but look out if he does get a game. Michael Lowry. I can't see him getting a game against New Zealand, but I thought I'd put him on the list just in case, because the regular fullback's Hugo Keenan. He plays the house down basically most of the times he plays, but they did blood this guy, Michael Lowry, in the Six Nations. He's another guy who's, like as I said, pretty small. He's only like 1.7 meters, so which is not that much bigger than a lot of halfbacks, which is probably shorter than some halfbacks, right? But he's got a wicked step. The fact that he is kind of short for a rugby player means he makes guys look absolutely stupid with his footwork. And he's actually pretty good in the air. He's got a good jump on him. Like you can literally see him against Hugo Keenan when they play against each other in club rugby, jumping, and this guy can win the ball. You know what I mean? So he's good in the air and he's quick. I don't know, something about his stride. Like, he's not tall, but man, he's really, really quick. So adds a turn of pace. He played that one game against Italy in the Six Nations, scored 2 tries and got a try assist, albeit Italy had 13 men on the pitch for most of that game. For his club, he's second only to Hanson for defenders beaten for Irish players. He's the 5th overall guy for run meters. He's not played New Zealand, and as I said, you probably haven't seen him unless you watch the Six Nations or the URC, but he is a proper dangerous wee fellow. So there you go. 5 maybe slightly less known guys than the 5 that the All Blacks guys picked. Josh van der Flier is pretty much a certainty. He's been a mainstay of the side, but as I said, against New Zealand maybe didn't seem kind of as obvious as some of the other guys. Sheehan, I think, is also very likely, given he's pretty much cemented himself as the number 2. And then number 3 guy, maybe squad guy, and maybe wider squad guy, but we'll have to see. But yeah, do keep an eye out for those names. Irish fans, do let us know some more. I limited myself to 5, but I could certainly do 10 or 15 if I wish to. But yeah, a lot of the names are already kind of the bigger names that people have probably already heard of. So for the guys who, as I said, are Kiwis, don't really watch much Northern Hemisphere stuff, keep an eye out for these guys. They're certainly dangerous parts of that Irish squad. But yeah, as I said, let us know some more, guys. And yes, cheers. We look forward to the series, and I will talk to you guys again soon. See you later.